My sister's disappearance. My sister Annie is missing. The police say they're doing everything they can, but deep down, I know they aren't looking in the right places. I believe her bullies know more than they're letting on. Annie was always a shy, timid girl. She didn't need much to be happy, just her books and a quiet corner to herself. I remember how she'd lose herself in her world of imagination, even if we didn't have much to give her. We didn't have new clothes or fancy things. Most of the time, we barely had enough to eat, but Annie never complained. She found joy in the simplest things, unlike me. I always knew how to stand up for myself, even when we got teased for being poor. I learned to deal with the bullies, and over time, they left me alone. But Annie, she wasn't like me. At first, the bullying was harmless enough, just the typical schoolyard taunts and laughter. But soon, it escalated. They started pulling pranks, things that seemed innocent enough on the surface, but it was a clear message. They were trying to break her, pulling her chair out from under her, filling her hair with gum, things like that. We tried to help, but Annie always insisted she was fine, that it wasn't a big deal. She didn't want us to worry. I should have noticed sooner, but I didn't. I thought maybe she'd grow out of it. I didn't know how deep the damage was until that one day, just a week before she disappeared, when she came home, bruised and shaken. I rushed to her, desperate to know what had happened. There were strange marks all over her body, marks that looked like tattoos, but they weren't tattoos at all. They were symbols, drawn hastily with some kind of ink. My heart dropped into my stomach as she told me the truth. Melanie, her biggest bully, and her group of friends had cornered her around the block. They'd beaten her up, laughing as they marked her with those symbols, taunting her the whole time. I felt sick. The idea that someone could hurt my sister like that, it twisted something inside me. I called the school immediately. I demanded that they expel every one of those girls. But they didn't. They didn't do a thing. They said they'd talk to the girls and take action, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. They never really do enough when it comes to bullying. The girls were still there, in the halls, waiting for the next chance to torment her. So I made the decision. Annie wasn't going back to that school. From that moment on, she'd be homeschooled. For a while, it seemed like things were getting better. Annie smiled again, a little more often, and there was less tension in the house. But it didn't last. A few days after we pulled her out of school, Melanie started showing up at our house. She didn't even care anymore. She wasn't hiding her cruelty. She'd throw rocks at Annie's window in the middle of the night. She'd send horrible packages, dead rats, shredded animal fur, things that no one should ever have to see. The police told us there was nothing they could do. They said it wasn't serious enough for an investigation. What kind of world do we live in where terrorizing someone isn't enough to get action? It finally stopped. At least it seemed to. But something was off with Annie. I noticed her acting strangely. Every time I'd walk past her room, I'd catch glimpses of her on her phone, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. Sometimes she was crying, but when I asked her what was wrong, she'd cover it up, telling me it was nothing. Just some stupid thing, she'd say. And I believed her. I didn't know what else to do. Then one night, it happened. She vanished.